right, welcome back. And to another story now. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, that is IEBC, yesterday suffered a major setback in enforcing the Electoral Code of Conduct in a case that Murang'a woman representative Sabina Chege had petitioned the High Court after IEBC commenced hearings against her sentiments that signaled possibility of rigging elections in favor of President Kenyatta. Justice Anthony Murima found that IEBC has no power to summon any witness to its Electoral Code Enforcement Committee, as the Constitution does not include IEBC in commissions allowed to do so. The High Court also found sections of the Elections Act that allow the Commission to summon witnesses as unconstitutional, saying that if IEBC wants, it can investigate any matter without summoning any witness and thereafter recommend further action through the Director of Public Prosecutions or directly move the High Court. This now means that IEBC may have to drop all other summons and hearings, including against Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria, unless it successfully appeals the matter at the Court of Appeal. All right, and stemming from that, I want us now to focus on what this means, especially for the road to elections at a time that so much has been going on, including what just happened on Friday, the stoning of Raila Odinga's chopper while in the North Rift. And of course, so much is going on in the preparations to that election. Honorable Samatandi, so when the High Court makes such a decision that IEBC has no power to summon anybody, where does that leave us, especially when you have politicians saying several things, some of them bordering on abuse or offending the electoral code of conduct?
Sam, thank you very much for this issue. When the Honorable Sabina Chege was summoned by IEBC, I was part of the team that accompanied her to the IEBC together with Senior Counsel Paulo Tiendamolo and James Orengo. And the legal team who are representing her raised some preliminary objections to the IEBC Electoral Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee. And the issues which were raised by the team are the same findings that have come out from the High Court. One of which was who was the complainant in the first place? Because I remember when Sabina Chege made those statements at a rally, there was an uproar from sectional politicians, and immediately IEBC swung into action. So we asked them, who is the complainant on this issue? And the other issue which was also raised was, who are going to be the witnesses? And the objections which we raised were a number. The IEBC chairman and the team retreated back and told us that they are going to consider the objections, and when they came back, they were unable to give us explanation. All they said was that let us continue with the case, because we had intended that they had no mandate, even, first of all, to begin by summoning the Honorable Sabina Chege. So the finding by the High Court, for me, I totally agree with them. I think this is the way to go. There is no way IEBC can enforce its own code of conduct. It cannot. Because if it does, just like the findings have come out, they would be the complainant, they would be the witness, and they would be the judge. So I think I agree with them. Let this enforcement be done by somebody else, but not the IEBC itself. Because IEBC itself is being accused of so many things. You know, they've been accused of corruption. Remember in the Supreme Court finding on the Raila Odinga petition, presidential petition, IEBC was indicted in so many. IEBC was indicted on so many areas.
You said corruption?
Not corruption. I said they have been indicted on so many areas by the Supreme Court. Some of the areas which they were found to have committed offenses, they were not even unable to respond. You know, they were unable to open the servers. You remember? That was a finding. They were not, and they failed completely. They failed totally to do it. So I think what the finding of the High Court is something which we need to support. Okay. Yes, and allow. I think it is unconstitutional. This enforcement committee is unconstitutional, and maybe we need to amend the law, Chris. We need to amend the law so that we can give these powers to somebody else to enforce.
I hear you. I'll get you, Dr. Chris. But Senator Mwaura, so yes, of course, IBC, there's nothing they can do now with the High Court having made its decision unless they appeal successfully. But then again, the politicians have been saying several things. And if the institutions that are managing these elections, whether it's IBC, whether it's NCIC, if they are told that you cannot do much in terms of summoning, investigating, you have to leave that to the DPP charging such cases, how then do we tame politicians, given we have so little time, yet very volatile situation?
Maybe I think we need to get that clarity in law, because then, of course, I agree. I agree on one hand about you cannot set your own code of conduct and then you start calling people. Because see, what is the role of the VPP here? The dysfunctional NCIC, because I can call it that way. Why? Because when Junaid Mohammed said very unpalatable things about me, there was my people went there and reported, but nothing has been happening. I think Raila Odinga was supposed to appear.
Wait a minute. When you say dysfunctional, what was NCIC supposed to do?
Obviously, he was supposed to be summoned. There was supposed to be some, follow-up, because they have the powers within the law. Yeah. Right?
But now, the same judgment that was delivered yesterday talks about the commissions and independent offices that are allowed to summon. NCIC is not one of them.
That's what, because it's a statutory commission. That's what I'm saying. We need to look at the law, Sam, and make sure that there is a proper procedure in terms of who is supposed to do it. Otherwise, there is no need of having bodies that are gobbling up public funds and they are just toothless bulldogs. I think the issue there is that what is it that we are doing? Are we just supposed to do what I call governmenting, where you actually creating sinecure institutions that are ineffectual in terms of ensuring they address the problem that they were initially set up to take care of? So I think that is a problem in terms of our the way we are drafting and codifying these things into law. So it is a challenge on the part of us as parliamentarians, but also some. You must also not run away from the question of uneven application and selective application of the law. So that then, if then decisions are made, are they really purely on political considerations, depending on who is being questioned at this point in time? That really affects the rule of law. So we have to be very clear what is the motivation.
Have you seen selective application of the law in the run-up to the election?
A lot of it. A lot of it, because when
Examples?
Mithika Linturi was accused of, mentioning some word that I should not repeat here. I mean, there was a lot of, acrimony and what have you. When, of course, the same was repeated, you see, by those who are in Azimio, you see also the reaction. If you look at, for example, even the violence that we are talking about in terms of the chopper, and nobody should actually encourage any form of violence. When it happened in Kondele and now in this chopper. So you can see there's that selective and uneven application of the law and procedure. Even the pronouncements by the president himself, he never condemned when this happened in Kondele and all of that. So really, Sabina will have gone to court and said IBC has no powers. Even when you look at not just this, IBC has got there's the dispute resolution around elections, versus the PPDT and the ORPP. So we need to tidy up, and I think Chris Omalo, I must give you credit because you have initiated political parties amendments severally. We need to tidy up so that we know which is the hierarchy. Of course, Sam, there's also a challenge there around the office of the DPP. I think they started very robustly, Haji, but of late I think there has been kind of a slowdown. I hope that office has not been captured by the inertia within the various empire building, trajectory of civil servants and state officers, so that then you have the vibrancy that is required, and there is impartial and even application of their own procedures. That for me is a problem, so that you know where to locate. But sometimes when that is the case, then that is a point where then when you interfere with it, then nothing happens. I know for sure we have a problem in terms of our state of being, because a lot of powers are spread, maybe 5, 10 government agencies. Everybody is supposed to do something. In the process, then nobody does it. So we need to review that so that then we have a clear chain of command, so that then you don't have somebody thinking that this is their role only to be stopped by the courts.
Okay, very interesting perspectives there. And I want us to listen to one Moses Kuria when he appeared before IEBC, that same committee on electoral code enforcement, And he said a few things. Of course, he challenged the jurisdiction of the committee, but also said there are several issues that are yet to be resolved. In Ethiopia, they were reading from the same script with the Honorable Atandi here. Listen.
And the issue of investigator, accuser, judge, and executioner all wrapped up in one in IBC. I am not the one who impugned the 2017 general election. It is the Supreme Court. And actually, I intend to call the Supreme Court before as a witness, because until now, the orders to open the servers were never complied with. So before even, this I think is a wonderful opportunity, Kenyans. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to audit so that we don't plunge this country into another crisis and another chaos.
And just to point out here, the judgment of Justice Anthony Murima from the courts yesterday indicates that first, IBC cannot summon anybody to their committees, but secondly, that some of those provisions in the Elections Act are actually unconstitutional because of giving powers to IBC that the Constitution totally denied them, but also saying that for you to be held accountable, if you are an aspirant or a political party or a candidate or whatever you are, you have to first subscribe to the Code of Conduct. And it appears so far, Dr. Chris Omalo, nobody has signed that Code of Conduct because, of course, the nominations are not yet done. So it then means, I mean, politicians would appear to be free to do whatever they want, knowing that even if IBC is watching, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. It is true in terms of the timing. It can only be applied to you when you've signed. And as it stands right now, we've not yet presented our papers to the IBC. We are still going through the party primaries. But even the parties themselves, they have actually borrowed the IBC Code of Conduct as we go through when we are presenting our rules and nominations to the IBC. But having said that, Sam, it is opening a Pandora's box, this ruling of Justice Anthony Murima. You know, IBC is responsible for free and fair credible elections. It is true for purposes of checks and balances. The way Honorable Kuria said, you can't be investigator, prosecutor, what have you, in terms of the principle of checks and balances. So it comes back to the members of parliament. It actually requires a lot of the delicate balance, particularly where the ruling that sections of the Elections Act are unconstitutional. Maybe, I'm hoping we are still debating the Elections Act because I was away. We need to go into and look into that aspect. So truly, whatever the court has ruled, it is our responsibility. Once the court has declared a certain section to be unconstitutional, it is our responsibility to go and amend that accordingly. If at all, the IBC is not going to challenge it in the court of appeal. But I see IBC, they have a lot of work to do. And I call upon my colleagues who are politicians, the way we are uttering some words, you know, it can lead to some chaos. Really, we must refrain ourselves. Because when you look at the issues, if at all it's true, tulisaidia kuiba. I don't know whether he said kuiba or kuimba. Because I was in that forum, and we come from different tribal backgrounds, where kuiba in some community can as well mean kuimba. So, to me, IBC was in order to ask to someone, Honorable Moses Kuria, for purposes of clarity. What did you imply? Did you say kuiba ama kuimba?
You know, well, those summons are not meant for clarifying anything. In fact, Chairman Chebukati last week said that the matter would proceed to full hearing. That is not just for clarity, but of course that now may not happen after the judgment of the High Court. But Honorable Mbui, I mean, you've been vocal on speaking to your fellow politicians to be mindful of what they say. But then as a country, now what do we do? Because the organization or the body that was meant to be enforcing its electoral code of conduct has been told, yes, you may investigate, but you cannot be the one to deal with the matter unless you charge such a person in court.
Yes, the issues to do with court are very complicated. I remember even our last election results were contested. There was a ruling that the court gave that was so mixed up that we couldn't even go to another repeat election. But on the issue of politicians being a bit careless, I've just heard the Honorable Senator Isaac Mwaura say that some of these state agencies are toothless bulldogs on a national TV station. And I thought, I mean, those are some of the things we keep complaining about. And then he also clearly goes and, you know, he says that there is a selective and uneven application of the law. And when you go to IEBC, because that's what we are discussing, the first person that IEBC has summoned is Sabina Chege, who is aligned to the team that is not his team. And what he's trying to imply is that his team is a victim. In fact, Moses Kuria was invited or summoned later. So I think there is no uneven application by IEBC. Now, on the issue, I think the court was right in some of the issues. But on the matter of the code of conduct, I have a concern because the issue is that already every politician has signed a code of conduct. If you are in public office, holding a political office, you've already signed a code of conduct. I signed a code of conduct in 2017. Does it cease to exist to have full effect of law after I'm elected? Or do I continue serving under that code? But
I thought that the law is specific, saying that it's for the election period. And
only the election. So it's over. So once the elections are over, I can now start misbehaving. I think maybe we need to look at that law because it's critical to ensure that some of these things are sorted out. But then I want to say that IEBC has failed us some. The reality is that IEBC has failed this country, not just in the poor conduct of the elections, at least the presidential elections, but even on the issue of how to enforce and how to raise concerns about the things that are happening in breach of electoral laws. Now, you know that from the last election, 2017, there has been early campaigns. It's against the law. In 2017, I think immediately we elected Uhuru and Ruto as his deputy.
Which law?
See, that it's early campaigns.
So, what law does it offend?
The electoral laws. Elections Act. I would need to consult. I mean, to check. There's something against early campaigns, and you know that there's a period within which you're allowed to campaign.
The period of official campaigns, and I think for this election it begins on 29th or 30th.
Yes, so that's the official campaign period.
Yes, but what I'm asking is, because you said it's against the law, which law does it offend?
The regulations of electoral whatever regulations. The same law. You know that there is a specific period given for campaigns. And beyond that period, campaigns are not supposed to continue. That's why even the IEBC would ask that people pull out their posters and campaigns end. But last elections, 2017, they ended with an election of a president, MPs and everyone, and started with the deputy president running around all over the country campaigning for 2022. Of course, at the detriment of the economy and the nation, because that has been a major issue. Not to forget, Sam, there's also the issue of voter bribery. The DP and his team have been bribing voters from 2017, going to churches, giving, hefty contributions, all over this period.
Those are offenses that are defined in law.
Yes, they are.
Talk about
and so I'm saying IEBC has failed because they should have picked those issues.
Just hold on.
Yes.
Because you've said that the deputy president had been going to churches and bribing.
Yes.
And the brigade of Tanga. It is true.
How is it bribing? That's what I'm asking.
That's bribery.
Making church contribution is bribing. That's a very serious allegation on national television.
Yeah, but it's a fact. But you know,
bribing in church.
Just hold on.
Sadaka is not bribing.
Robert, that's very serious.
Now let me clarify. Let me clarify.
Go ahead.
Sam, the deputy president has been having delegations from 2017 going to his current house. And what has been happening is that these delegations have been given money. What was the purpose of that money? Throughout, every time they go there, they come out with money. And that is what we call voter bribery, because obviously it is a way of inducing these people to vote in a certain way when the elections begin.
With due respect, Sam,
that's
this guy cannot be able to answer questions.
Sam, let me come.
Even want to score for your team.
Wait,
and it's going beyond.
I'll get to you.
That's not right. You cannot say that people going to church is actually bribing and giving money to church. I think even Robert Boy will do that a lot on your own constituency.
I'll give an opportunity, but he has to substantiate.
Yes, I will substantiate.
When you talk about
acceptable.
No.
Just hold on.
I want to come in.
Bribing of voters.
Yes.
Those are offences that would be found in the Election Offences Act.
Yes.
And it operates within an election period.
Yes.
The election period was gazetted on 20th of January.
Absolutely.
It runs until the conclusion of this election. So how then do you say that whatever the deputy president has been doing is part of bribing voters?
Let me
election?
Let me tell you, Sam. I'll start first with the issue of early campaigns. IBC itself have actually cautioned the deputy president and the former prime minister just in the recent past and said they have been involved in early campaigns. So doesn't that vindicate me that the fact is there has been early campaigns? I only put a date to it. I only said that early campaigns by the DP started earlier than the former prime minister because it started in 2017 after August. That was the only thing. Now, on the matter of voter bribery, you know, the fact is that you're not supposed to induce voters to vote for you because of the issue of giving them money. And this has been happening all along. And it's in public domain. We all know what has been happening. People have been given money. People have been trooping to the office of the deputy president, receiving handouts. And that has obviously been one of the things that has been used to induce people to support his candidacy. No. So clearly for me, I feel that IBC needed to have called out those things early enough, so that then the ruling that we have received now would have received it a year or two ago, and people would have conducted themselves in a manner likely to provide a level playing field going into the next elections. Okay. That is what I am raising.
Okay, I hear you, and I think Senator Mora and Dr. Chris Omale will be responding to that. But Honorable Atandi, I'm struggling with what he's saying, that early campaigns are illegal. I've asked him for the particular legal provision, he doesn't have it. But how does that sit with the express freedom of expression that is in the Constitution? I believe it's Article 31, if I'm not mistaken.
Sam, let me weigh in on the first matter. Sam, the question of corruption and bribery by the DP is something which Kenyans have debated for long. First of all, it started when Kenyans expressed concern that the deputy president was spending upwards of 20 million shillings a week in Harambes, in churches, in giving handouts to border borders and everybody else across the country. We have raised this issue and we have asked the DP to explain to us what is the sources of his money. And this thing has never been explained, Sam. So to put Honorable Mbui in a corner to justify his statement, I think is actually wrong on your side. Because you, as the media...
How is it wrong? He has said there's voter bribery.
No, but DP has been bribing church leaders and everybody across the country.
And that's romantic.
For the last 4 years. And he has never told us, where does he make 20 million to spend in a week? Actually, more than that. There's a week he spent 100 million.
It's okay that it's fine for you to say you don't have the information, the source of the money, but I'm asking if indeed it is an offense of voter bribery, what evidence do you have and what action would you want to take?
There's evidence, but I want to agree with Mwaura that the institutions are supposed are ineffective.
You're the one alleging.
The institutions are ineffective because actually, DP Ruto should have been charged in court today.
But you're the one alleging.
By now, he should have been charged in court because of these offenses. That is one, which I wanted to clarify. I think I've made my point. Two, on the question which you've raised, on the... Maybe you can...
Yes, I had asked you, because now there's question of early campaigns versus, and I need to clarify here, it's Article 33, not 31, on the freedom of expression. Is there really an offense that you'd say that whoever person who has been campaigning has committed?
I think it's a moral offense. It's a moral offense because, remember, the president even has been complaining that his deputy stopped working. He has been, traveling all over the country and doing his own campaigns at the expense of offering services to the people. Yet, this is a person who is in public office, whose office is funded by the taxpayers. So I think this is a question of morality. And you want to tie it with the statements which were issued by Ruto yesterday, lashing out at the government in which he serves, and saying, the government should have done this, the officers. Those are the people he hired, actually. The ministers in government were hired by Ruto, and even the officers, the PSs. So I think we are talking about the question of moral obligation.
Which specific ones?
This government is a 50-50 government.
Yes, so which ministers did DP Ruto hire?
He hired 50% of government to
which ones?
Uhuru hired. 50% of government.
The CSs are known, Honorable Atandi.
Yes.
Which ones?
But their CSs are aligned to Ruto, Sam.
That's what I'm asking. Who are they?
Should you put me in a corner on this issue?
You're the one raising the allegation.
Yeah?
Which CSs? Which PSs?
Sam. Sam, the government, this government has come to an end. The term has come to an end. And Sam, don't play ignorant, Sam.
I'm not playing ignorance. You're raising a question. I mean, you're not telling me, you're speaking to Kenyans, not me. Which CSs were appointed by DP Ruto?
When this government was set up, when the government was being set up after the 2017 elections, you remember that the DP and the president appointed ministers together. Don't you remember that?
That is true.
Yes, so, and some of the ministers have actually resigned voluntarily to go to politics, like C.S. Keter, who has been in charge of this energy docket for long, even before it was split. He just recently resigned to go to government. That was a Ruto appointee.
The reason I'm asking
and
that
many
question,
others which I don't want to go into.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that, you know, for Ruto to come out and claim that he's trying to check the government in which he serves, I think it's a moral question about, an ethical question about what kind of a leader we have, and whether Kenyans should trust DP Ruto, who is in government and trying to play the role of opposition.
Basically, the reason I'm asking you that question,
playing to the gallery.
Okay, you say that. The reason I'm asking that question is because he raised questions to the National Treasury, and I believe the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, and you're saying that these CSs were appointed by DP Ruto, so that's why it needed clarity.
Yes. He is part of government. He constituted the government in 2017 after the elections, and he has never run away from it. We have urged him to leave government premises and go and operate from his home. He has refused. Yeah. But the last thing I wanted to say, Sam.
Right.
Senator Mwaura has talked very well about chaos, about violence, political violence. I want to agree with him, but I want to urge him that he has never apologized to us for having perpetrated violence against us in Githurai. Actually, that's the time he was trying to find his footing within the Tangatanga coterie of politicians. You know, remember he was in Kieleweke, he was castigating Ruto. So by the time he wanted to go back to find his space, he actually brought violence to us.
What exactly did he do?
When he organized goons to heckle to stop our meeting in Githurai. That was one of the things he did, so that he would be accepted within the Tangatanga group of
Senator Mwaura, because you're here,
but he has never apologized to us. Today he's accusing Junet that he reported Junet when Junet made some statement against him, and Junet was not punished. So you served your own medicine. So I think you should not really complain. And you should also apologize to us on
just hold it there. Senator Mwaura, because you're here, I will give you the right of reply on what you have to say to what.
No, I think Atandi and I were in university together. We were student leaders together, and his character has never changed. He's very consistent. He actually terrorizes all members of parliament in the WhatsApp group we are in, so I'm not surprised. Let me say this. First and foremost, I'm not going to respond to him because he knows the goons that they hired in Babadogo, and they came all the way to Githurai. And these people have a penchant of hiring their own violence and then blaming it on other people, especially because they were smarting from the BBI laws. Can I then go ahead and contribute and say the following? That number one is that my friend Robert Mbui, I understand now why you are the SG of Wiper, because you're speaking from both ends of your mouth. How on earth can you on one hand praise IEBC and at the same time castigate that IEBC was summoned Sabina, then say IEBC is of questionable character? You are perpetuating the same narrative that was during those sit-downs against IEBC that ended up discrediting the elections. Number two, there's also consistency in what you're saying, Robert. We've seen what the president said about the churches, what Mama Ida Odinga said about the churches, what Raila Odinga said about the churches, and now what you're telling us here, that giving tithe, contributing to churches, is actually bribery. Honestly, that's not fair, because even you in Kadhiani, member for Kadhiani, you attend so many fundraisers, and you cannot say that when you do so, you're bribing voters. It cannot be acceptable that you could come on national television to accuse the deputy president, a man of his stature, that he's bribing people by contributing to churches. If you are not able to contribute, then that's your problem. Number three, those contributions cannot amount to the 20 billion that we lost in 4 years under BBI, something that was just a shenanigan that was aimed at self-preservation of two individuals. That, of course, was actually discredited, and I really must, congratulate our judiciary. I've been a beneficiary of their ruling, because that's how I got back to the Senate after they had said that I would never see the inside of Parliament. I thank God. And also, they did away with the presidential elections in 2017. Very good. It didn't serve me right that time. And also, they've done away with the BBI. Also, the issue of really, to be very honest and to be very sincere, If you listen to what Atandi is saying here, and my brother Robert, who I respect a lot, they are accusing the deputy president of being in government. We are effectively the government in opposition. And you are effectively the opposition in government who came through the back door. My friend Chris Wamalwa here was removed as a whip as a result of his allegiance. And I thank God because the people of Trans Nzoia are going to elect him as governor so that he doesn't suffer such embarrassment. I was chased out of parliament like a dog because of simply saying I support the deputy president. So you cannot come here and tell us that all of a sudden you are the same supporting the president. It's because you came to the government through the back door. The only thing that is helping the deputy president is that the drafters or the crafters of the 2010 constitution found it that then if you are a running mate, you are the deputy president, you can therefore not be removed from office the way it used to happen during President Moi's time, that you could just be dismissed by the roadside and then reappointed, or the way it's happening in Uganda currently. So the fact that we are there, but for the 4 years when everything was thrown out of the window and BBI became the center stage, the cornerstone of this government, that is why the economy has gone down in shambles.
Senator Mora, before I hear from Dr. Chris Mora, there's something you said that I would want to clarify, that it cost 20 billion shillings for the BBI program. How did you arrive at that figure?
We have been calculating all those meetings, and the monies that have been removed from has been from the Ministry of Interior. We have had estimates. We are economists, my friend. We know very well how much money has been spent. It's over 20 billion, actually. And by the way, the net effect of that is not even that 20 billion. It's the general mismanagement of the economy that today people do not have money.
That's what I'm asking. Senator Mora, fine, you've been calculating, but how did you arrive at that? Like, how much was used for what?
No, for example, how much money was being used for those public meetings that we were having in Kitui, in Kisumu, and what have you? Of course, every other time there will be more than 100 million in all of those functions.
From where? From which account?
From the confidential expenditure.
From which vote?
How was it used?
It was used to mobilize and also to bribe people, just like they're saying here. Yes, to bribe leaders and to intimidate and cajole people.
100 million shillings per meeting. How many meetings did you count?
There are so many meetings that happened. Some public, first and foremost, look at even the BBI committee. That is a public domain, how much they were being paid. See how much they were getting in terms of allowances. See how much money was used for printing of documents that were never circulated. We need an audit of that fund. For us, we estimated 20 billion, it could be more. Yes, that I'm willing to stand by.
I want us to listen to...
Don't allow Mwaura to get away with this.
Just hold on. I want us to listen to the members of the judiciary as well as DPP, the justice sector, so to speak, on what they said yesterday in a meeting that was looking at the road to elections. Listen.
When a prosecutor is empowered, knowing all the rules in the electoral law, it doesn't make sense if they are appearing before a magistrate who has no clue on what is a Kim's kit or what is an electoral offense. So we must move in tandem.
At the ODPP, we are committed to ensuring that the perpetrators of electoral offenses are prosecuted and punished to the full extent of the law.
We find the issues are mainly around violence. They go to matters of hate speech and also usage of state resources. These are some of the matters that will come up as we go along.
On our part as the Communication Authority, we are committed to facilitating the IEBC on the issue of network coverage for results transmission. On the cybersecurity component, the CA continues to work with other law enforcement agencies to monitor and support law enforcement activities around elections.
All right, of course, you can see them talking about several issues on the road to elections. And we just received a message from IEBC indicating that substantial provisions of the Election Offences Act, number 37 of 2016, which are previously resident in the Elections Act of 2011, were repeated and enacted into the Election Offences Act, thus transfer the powers to order investigations and prosecution from the IEBC to the Director of Public Prosecutions as provided under Section 21 of the Act. The DPP deals with matters related to investigations and prosecution of election offences. And so it would appear that in as much as that determination by the High Court yesterday that IEBC has no power to summon in enforcement of the Electoral Code of Conduct, then still there's a big brother watching somewhere. And Dr. Chris Wamalwa, so much has been said here, but how do we clean the political playfield? We have just over 4 months. How do you clean it to ensure that every person can get an opportunity without really abusing the system and causing rifts in the country that we really don't need at this time?
First of all, I want to start by saluting whatever has just been on TV, because for us to have a free, fair, credible elections, it's not just only the issue of IEBC. For instance, the issue of communication authority plays a very, very critical role. And even what Justice Koome has said, it's actually the team spirit. We must embrace team working. And for us from the political side, we also have a responsibility to play, because if we continue having these utterances that are coming up, it's actually going to set a very wrong precedence that can lead into chaos. And maybe I should also salute Justice Koome, the ruling on BBI. You know, I was away. And just like what my brother Mwaura has said, under Article 226 of the Constitution, the proponents must be surcharged. The public funds were lost at that particular time on dealing on a matter which is unconstitutional, maybe something for another day, but the relevant agencies must move with speed, an audit to be done, how much money was spent, and who was responsible, so that they can be surcharged the money wasted on the issue of the BBI. Now, coming to what Justice Koome has said, it is true. And this is the time the judiciary should now also move with speed and train the judicial officers. Like those things that are happening, many people you talk to, they're not aware of what's happening. So when we see such a collaboration and see different agencies coming together for the purposes of team working, it is something which is very, very positive. And they should go further and involve even the politicians, because mostly politicians were the ones who are playing the game. And we want it to be a fair game. We've seen my brother here. You ask him a simple question, which is in the Electoral Offences Act. Instead of answering, or he says he doesn't know, he blames the deputy president. Everything on deputy president. I've not seen Honorable Mbui answering the questions he's been asking. Instead, circumventing and coming up with saying deputy president. For me, going to church, when you give Sadaka, it's not bribery at all. And giving is about your heart. So when you come on national TV and you say Sadaka is bribery, it is totally wrong.
But would you be bothered by the question on source of those funds, like Honorable Atandi said?
When it comes to source of funds, when you go to church, there's no way the pastor will be able to know which one is the dirty money, which is the clean money. For sure. It's the only God in heaven. So when you come and start asking people, people can go and check. We file returns through the KRA. It's not just that you give your money only because you are getting from your salary. People are business people. People are farmers. So it is, if you want to know that, is maybe the responsibility of KRA to look at the returns. I might be earning a salary of 2 million, but I have other incomes, how I make my money. So it's KRA which can tell us. But for you to come on the national TV and you start claiming that you have a salary of 2 million, how do you give this? I mean, it is wrong. If you don't give Sadaka, because maybe that's your tradition, don't blame another person who is giving Sadaka. Maybe for purposes of full disclosure, because KRA, you file returns to the KRA, they know what is expected, it's the responsibility of that government agency to do that. If I'm a pastor, I'll be very happy if somebody has brought a tenth. And a tenth doesn't necessarily mean it's baked on your salary. Honorable Mbui here, he claims that he's a dynasty who owns a lot of land in Ukambani and all that. He has schools, he's a businessman. So when he comes to giving Sadaka of 1,000 per month, he's a man who can give billions, because I know how much he's worth, and he's my friend.
You say he's a dynasty? No. What does that mean?
That's a Tanga language.
No, Dr. Kishwala, what does that mean?
No. You know, Honorable Mbui, I think the term dynasty is being misused. It has been...
you just used it.
No. I want to clarify. I want to clarify the context which I used that.
Context of Honorable
Yes, yeah.
Mbui.
You know, Honorable Robert Mbui is a friend of mine. And he owns a lot of property, particularly land in Ukambani side. And I've been talking to him to sell me some peace. And part of it, he inherited, actually. Not that he bought, he inherited. And he can give me some substantial discounts. So we've been discussing, and he's my buddy. So when it comes to Sadaka that Chris Wamala gives, compared to the Sadaka he gives, in terms of a tenth, he should give more, because he's from a privileged background.
Does that answer my question on what dynasty means in...
As per the context, that's what I meant. as per that context.
Is that so, Honorable Mbui?
Now, if there is anyone who's unable to answer questions,
the context
it is my friend Chris here who can't explain any of the things that he said. But anyway, let me first allow me to defend myself a little bit because Honorable Senator Mwaura said I'm inconsistent. I'm actually not inconsistent. I did say that IBC is not partisan. That was the only positive thing I said. But I said they have actually consistently been unfair and wrong in managing their affairs from the last election up to currently, because they've called out early campaigns too late, and they've also been watching when people have been having political rallies and dishing out money, and unfortunately not saying anything about it, because that's obviously meant to influence voters going into the next election. But when I listen to Honorable Isaac Mwaura when he says that BBI consumed 20 billion, and I listen to his explanation of how that money was spent, I heard him say that this money was spent on meetings. Maybe I want to inform him that meetings of Azimio team are not mobilized with money. We don't pay people to attend meetings.
At that time.
We don't. It was BBI is all. BBI has all been the context of Azimio. We only converted it. It's a simple.
Dr. Chris Omala, please hold on.
So basically, the meetings that we've been holding and the meetings that have been held by the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga are not mobilized with money like the ones that Tanga Brigade do. So I think that's where the problem is, because you spend a lot of money, so you assume that we do. We don't. Our meetings are not for spending money.
Okay. Just alone. One of the final orders of the High Court in May 2021 was that the prayer for the orders that the Honorable Attorney General to ensure that other public officers who have directed or authorized the use of public funds in the unconstitutional constitutional change process promoted by the Steering Committee on the implementation of the BBI task force make good the said funds is declined from the reasons that have been given. So this is something that was in High Court. It was declined, but yes, you still raise questions about auditing that process. But interesting enough, actually, almost all of you were in support of BBI when it was in the road.
Yes.
I think
and some of us
as well as Dr.
They voted
yes, including voting for BBI on the floor of the House.
Yes.
Is that so?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
They all voted yes.
So let me take a look at the feedback.
Let me just weigh in on something. Sam.
Yes.
There's a reason why. During the Kibaki regime, there was nothing like a government minister or a public officer involving themselves in Harambes. And this is something which you need to bear me witness. During the Kibaki regime, there used to be no Harambes. And that is the time when government was effective, development projects were going on, and Kenyans were very happy. This idea of Harambee came in 2013 after DP was made the deputy president.
You are wrong.
They actually revived it. And this is the reason why actually corruption has been going up, because people have to look for money to go and bribe people.
So actually, Attorney does not attend the Harambes in his constituency. It is William Ruto who nurges him to go for Harambes on the ground. I think the people of Lagosonga are listening.
Isaac Mwaura, please be patient. Sam, this is something which we need to put in the right perspective. We must confess that the re-emergence of Harambes during this regime, the regime of Jubilee regime, is a reason also that there's re-emergence of corruption. These two things are tied together. And that's why we are saying that there's no way you can preach about bringing order in this country or creating better governance in this country if you do not confront this issue of corruption. Because
Professor
the Kenya Kwisha team...
Professor Nyang' Nyong'o brought a law. Let me clarify. Sam, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o...
No, I haven't finished my point.
Brought a law in Parliament barring Harambes.
Don't believe it. Let me just explain myself. This is my point. And so, these people must tell us the relationship between Harambes, leaders giving out money which they cannot explain,
and stealing,
and This is something which...
You see, Honorable Tandi, the things you're saying, it's within your right to say them, but it's at the wrong time because I cannot give them a right of reply.
Can I give a clarity?
But also, just to correct you, we agreed that on this issue we will not be using insulting words. So it's not Kenya Kusha, it's Kenya Kwanza. Just call it as it is.
Otherwise, we'll say Azimio la Kuzimia.
No, don't say that. Let's take a look at the feedback. Okello Mwalimu is saying that freedom of expression should never be misused by a cabal of political class to create incitements and confusion. After Justice Murima's ruling, concerned constitutional bodies must summon reckless politicians turned waimbaji. Okay, Chalo Wadrozi, Deputy President Ruto has no right to criticize the government on fuel issue because he is part of the problem. He is still the Deputy President. He was given the energy docket but could not address the problem. What did he do to address the matter? He has previously said that he was never allocated any docket. Babji, the government should pump in money to revive the oil refinery in Mombasa, which I'm sure will cost less than 34 billion shillings, and import crude oil at a cheaper cost, and we will be home and dry, just like the Moise regime. LJ Sindani, the fuel shortage crisis tells us that we should be careful about the promises we make and how to sustain them. In the first place, why must we pay oil companies subsidy in the name of stabilization fund? We should never start anything that we cannot sustain. Bob Otieno Owino, following fuel crisis, it clearly sends a signal that Kenya is run by cartels at their own free will. David MB, kindly remind them they are all in one arm of government, that is legislature. We don't want blame games. And I think it's the best point to leave it at. Thank you all. Samatandi from Lagos Songa.
Closing remarks?
No. Senator Isaac Moora, nominated senator. Dr. Chris Omalwa from Kiminini, and Robert Mbui from Kathiani constituency. Thank you for making time for us. We'll do this again some other time. Bye for now. My name is Sam Gituko.